Hi, what's up? How's it going? My name is Liz, and you're watching For Booking Out Loud. So before I even begin the video, I want to apologize for any wind noises that is happening. It is currently storming outside and I can't really control the wind volume. So if you hear anything, that's what it is. And now on to the video. So I have been racking my brain for romance recommendations and I was trying to do something else. I did do that Singles Day video, which again, I'll link above and below like always. But I was trying to do something else. I'm not truly in the romance genre. I don't know too much about it. And then as I was going through my Goodreads list and all the books that I've read, so I could recommend some to you all for Valentine's Day, I noticed that I have a couple of romance books that I've read that kind of, well, I wouldn't say embarrass me, but they were the romance books I read when I was like in middle school or high school. And I just kind of found it funny. So this video is going to be less a romance recommendation and more, these are the romance books that enticed me when I was young Liz, reading books and absolutely loving them. So I'm going to recommend, like I said, maybe not a recommendation video, but just like a history of me. But there's 8 books that I'm going to mention, and they're sorted into 4 categories. One is the singular classic that I've read. Then 2 is like the paranormal YA fantasy romance that I used to read. 3 is, what is 3? Oh, 3 is like the biggest romance book I had read for a very long time, one of the biggest books I had read up to date, and just something that I fell in love with. And then of course 4 is going to be the books I picked up at the airport because I forgot to bring my own book and I loved them, but probably were too old for me to have read them, if that makes any sense. You'll get it when we get to those books, okay? You'll get it. So let's start with 1, The Beautiful Classics, a classic book that I absolutely fell in love with when I was younger, and that would be Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. So this is a book that was in no way required for me to read, not even in college, but I picked it up I think my freshman or sophomore year of high school, and I breezed through it within a day. I don't know what it was about Jane Austen, I don't know what it was about Pride and Prejudice, but I absolutely fell in love with this book. I don't regret it. I love the movies. And it's something that is kind of a go-to classic for me just because I know I will enjoy it. I was trying to look in my library, but I don't think I actually own this book, which is interesting to me. But that just goes to show you that I was able to find it on my own and enjoy it by itself. So that was my classic. Now going into my weird paranormal fantasy romances, I'm gonna say off the bat, I don't recommend them to you. They're very early 2000s YA with all of the tropes associated with that, all of the badly written tropes that are associated with that. And looking back on them now, I can see how some of them might be problematic. I can see how some of them were definitely interesting and they are not to my taste at all anymore. But here we go. There it is. The first one I have to mention is The Summoning by Kelley Armstrong. And I really don't know what it was about this book other than it was a paranormal book that really enticed me. It is about this young girl named Chloe. It's been a while. And she all of a sudden discovers she can see the dead. She's psychic. Either way, she can see ghosts, she can see the dead, and somehow it might be connected to her mother, who's been long lost. And this group finds out that she's able to see the dead and sends her to the Laurell house, which is kind of a reform house for troubled teens, if I can remember correctly. And that's where she meets her romantic interest. I believe, oh wow. So I did look this up, and there's actually 6 books in this series. I don't remember reading all 6. I think I can only remember 2. There's this one with the red crystal, and there's one with the blue crystal. I couldn't tell you what's happening in them anymore. This was a very long time ago that I read this, but it was just iconic for me. When I think of paranormal YA romance, this is the one. All right, so the next series is kind of a long story. I don't know if you've heard of L.J. Smith and the Vampire Diaries. I really enjoyed the TV show, and that's actually why I picked up this book, and then I hated it. I absolutely hated L.J. Smith's writing. It was not good to me. However, then I picked up, this is number 1, yeah. Then I picked up the Night World series by L.J. Smith, and I don't know what it was. I loved them. I have volumes 1, which has 3 stories in it, volume 2, which has 3 more stories in it, and volume 3, which has 3 more stories. Yeah, you talk about the paranormal, and these stories have them all. They have vampires, they have werewolves, soulmates, witches, wizards, and I think angels too. Like everything that goes along to all of these books. And they have every trope imaginable within them. Haters to lovers, the triangle, friends to lovers, all great things, right? It's been a long time since I've read these, like with any book on this list. And I'd have to reread them if I want to stand by them, but you know, also some problematic things in my opinion, but we'll save that for a different time. So book number 3 that I absolutely loved when I was younger, City of Bones by Cassandra Clare. This is a very big staple in the booktube community, and I have to admit I absolutely loved this first trilogy. City of Bones, City of Glass. Oh gosh, of course when I'm doing the video I can't remember all of them. But basically the Immortal Instruments first trilogy, loved it. Loved Clary, what's the guy's name? Jace. I loved Jace. It was a fun time. I did try to start the second trilogy when I was younger. I think that's the Infernal Devices, maybe? I don't know. I did not like that one at all. And so my love stays true to these first 3 books. And I know reading it now, I probably would not like them at all. But it was younger Liz. It was a simpler time. My tastes have just changed over the years. All right, so the 5th book, which is still into this paranormal fantasy romance thing, is actually Blue Bloods by Melissa de la Cruz. And it's a normal, like, high society with a twist of them being vampires in New York City. I believe it's about, so it's this girl named Schuyler who's going to this prestigious New York high school, and all of a sudden she's becoming this blue blood, right? Her blood is blue, she's growing a couple of fangs, eeny, meeny, miny, moe, things are happening, she's a vampire, right? And she discovers that her classmates, or at least the popular classmates, are also vampires. And it's just that high society New York something's happening kind of thing. And as you can tell, probably, maybe, this book is actually very well loved. I enjoyed this one immensely. I remember picking up the second book and not enjoying it at all, which happens. So I kept it to just this one, and I looked it up. There's 7 in this series now. Time flies and things happen. All right, so number 6 is going to be The Host by Stephenie Meyer. And believe me, I know a lot of the problematic things that Stephenie Meyer does, especially in the Twilight series. And I didn't know that when I picked this up when I was quite younger. This was one of the longest books I had read at the time. It was one of my first alien fantasy books. I guess that would be sci-fi, alien sci-fi books. And I just fell in love with the characters. I fell in love with our main character, Melanie. And what was the soul's name? Wanderer. And I fell in love with Wanderer. I enjoyed the weird romance that was happening, where it was kind of like a triangle romance, but also a square romance, which was kind of interesting. And I loved this book. This one is also quite loved. I tried to take care of it over the years, but life. I don't know if I can recommend it, just because it is written by Stephenie Meyer, and she's done a lot of things that are not good. But this is one book that I adored when I was little. So, the next 2 books are books, both of them, strangely enough, I picked up in a bookstore at the airport because I forgot my book 2 separate times, not the same time. And they were probably too adult for me at the time. I don't know, depends on your parenting style or your parenting opinion. But looking back on it, I think one of the reasons why I liked it so much was because it wasn't a YA book and it was an adult. Both of them were adult books. So the first one of this category is called Some Girls Bite by Neill. Yes. And it's part of this huge series called the Chicagoland Vampire series. And it focuses on this girl who was going to college, and one night she was changed into a vampire. And then throughout her travels, she falls in love with, I think it was the head of the house or the master of one of these Chicagoland houses. And she also becomes this kick-ass vampire girl, like a defender kind of thing. I think of it a lot like Underworld, how that main girl in Underworld is. This is kind of like Chicagoland vampires. However, knowing that summary, there's a lot of gruesome things that happen and a little something that also happens in this book. And as a teenage young girl, it was very enticing to me. I can't say that I've read any more than that first book, which is fine. And it's something that I might want to pick up down the road if I'm more curious about this series. And then my final book that I fell in love with, that's a romance when I was younger, is going to be Guilty Pleasures by Laurell K. Hamilton. So this is the first book in the Anita Blake series. She's like a paranormal investigator, and she has the powers to summon the undead, I believe. I don't know. Things go down, and she's recruited by the head vampire of her city to investigate a series of murders that's happening. And then, of course, there's some romance on the side, because why would it be in this list without romance? And a ton of paranormal shenanigans that happen. Like I said, werewolves, vampires, I think there was were-tigers. And then, of course, Anita Blake is someone who can summon the dead, because why not? And again, a little adult for really young Liz. And I was actually talking to Amy the other day about this book and how it was kind of dimmed down on the erotica stuff, but the author herself really wanted to write an erotica book. And so you have a little more sexy times in this book than what you would have in a regular YA romance. What can I say? I was a weird kid, and I liked that. So these are books that I did enjoy when I was really young. Again, I don't know if I can calmly and surely recommend these to you, but I just wanted to give you a little history on my romance knowledge. I would really enjoy getting back into the romance gig, or at least starting. And to be honest, besides a lot of books that are talked about on BookTube, I don't really know what to start with. So if you have any romantic book recommendations, please comment down below and let me know. Especially now that you know at least my taste when I was a lot younger. Maybe have me do a little paranormal, sci-fi, fantasy romance. It's a big category. I'm sure I can find something that I like. But I hope you all have a wonderful day. And if you're watching this on Valentine's Day, I hope you have a wonderful Valentine's Day as well. I'll see you next time.